Did you know that some of Australia's cats and dogs got conscripted to fight in America's war in Vietnam? I have here today radical left historian Rowan Carhill to tell us the story, and what a ripper it is. Now, before we get to the cats and dogs, Rowan Cahill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm 80 years old. During the 1960s, when conscription was introduced into Australia, I was amongst those 1 in 12 young males without the right to vote, who at the age of 20 was conscripted and conscripted for Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War. I became an anti-war protester. I refused to go into the army. I faced arrest, imprisonment, and eventually registered to become a conscience objector, and took the government through the courts and eventually got that status. During that process, I became a prominent in the anti-war movement, and ASIO started a file on me in 1967. I was variously arrested, went through the courts on various charges for alleged political crimes, and that's about it, Jody. Yeah, and historians today seek me out and ask me questions about the period because of my involvement and activities at that time.
Including cat historians.
Including cats, yes, cat historians, yes.
So, set the scene for us, Rowan. What led up to the Cats and Dogs of Australia being conscripted into the Vietnam War?
Right. Well, the conscription process was that as you turned 20, and that's a year before you get the right to vote, you young males had to register for national service. The registrations took place twice a year, and if your birthday fell in the first half of the year, you registered for national service in that half. In the second half of the year, if your birthday fell in that date, you registered for national service. So you're dealing with 20-year-olds a year before they got the right to vote. The birth dates then went into a lottery barrel, and a number of dates were drawn out. And if your date was drawn out, you were in the army for 2 years, including eventually your destination was the Vietnam War, and thousands of conscripts ended up in Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War. You had a 1 in 12 chance of having your marble drawn out, and I got drawn out the first year that the conscription was introduced in 1965, and that's the only lottery I ever won.
Pretty macabre lottery to win.
Pretty macabre lottery, yes.
Yes, very macabre lottery. So, how did it come to pass that these Fido and Kitty got conscripted?
Right. Well, as the anti-war movement in the beginning was very small, the majority of the Australian voting population thought conscription was good, thought the Vietnam War was good. But as the war dragged on, and as the propaganda of the government was revealed to be farcical and based on lies and fabrications, the anti-war movement grew, and it grew extensively. And that's where you see those huge demonstrations at the end of the war in the late 60s and the early 70s. What happened was that it eventually became apparent to us, to we who opposed the war, that the government really didn't have an idea of who was eligible for conscription. Uh, they didn't have a central database. It was a time in which there were, bank cards didn't exist, Medicare didn't exist. The computerised system was very primitive in the time. So the government started to pass laws trying to force employers, parents, anybody to dob in people who were eligible for conscription but hadn't registered. When you did register for national service, you either got a piece of paper saying you had been conscripted or a piece of paper saying that you had been exempted because you hadn't been selected, right? And employers were not meant to employ anybody who couldn't produce a piece of paper saying they had been exempted, right? If you were in the workforce, you got into the military straight away. If you were a university student, you got your registration deferred. You got your military service deferred until you'd finished your first degree. You had to finish your degrees without failure, and then you went into the army. Well, when it became apparent to us that the government didn't really have an idea of who was eligible, it became one of the things people did was fill in registration papers for real people, animals, and anybody you liked, to stuff up the government procedures. It's an old tactic of civil disruption that you overload the bureaucracy and make them do unnecessary paperwork. So, for example, in 1970, I was working for the Seamen's Union of Australia, and I filled in conscription papers for the leader of the Seamen's Union, who was a 68-year-old. He got conscripted, actually. His marble actually got drawn out in the ballot. Filling in the papers was simple. You just went to the local post office or the Department of Labour and National Service, and you just got the papers. They handed across the counter. So you filled in fake papers and overloaded and stuffed up the paperwork. If you did satisfactorily, like I did, conscript the leader of the Seamen's Union, he thought it was a great joke. It got put on the front page of the trade union's journal. A 68-year-old person. The government said, "You're conscripted." They had no idea that he was a 68-year-old thing because I'd filled in the paperwork that said he was a 20-year-old. So the government didn't have an idea. So there started then to be parties where you got together and you filled in fake registration forms. Now, this is all apocryphal because I don't. I know I satisfactorily conscripted a person, a 68-year-old, but the story went around that people were conscripting, animals and cats and dogs. So you've got there's a cat next door, or there's a cat up the street or a cat next door, and it's called, Cyril or something. You just fill in a paper for Cyril the cat, give him his surname or the family name that he's got. So he belongs to the Smith. So you fill in a registration paper for Cyril Smith. You give him his correct address. You give him a birth date that's relevant to the conscription period. And Cyril's got a 1 in 12 chance of actually being conscripted. You only have to fill in a particular half year, 180 fake papers, and 12 of your fake people will be conscripted. So people were filling in allegedly, and I know for a fact, I did and was satisfactory, but you heard around the traps that people were conscripting old age pensioners, bastards up the street that they didn't like, dogs and cats, and the government's got no idea. And so, yeah, say it's Cyril the cat, Cyril Smith. He becomes a data entry in a government database. They fill out the papers. He gets conscripted. The people get this piece of paper that says that Cyril has been conscripted, and they probably get up on the phone and say, "Excuse me, Cyril is a cat," or else they ignore it, and the next thing they get a piece of paper saying Cyril the cat is in breach of the National Service Act, and if he doesn't report for a medical, we'll come and
Write me out.
yeah, we'll take him. Yeah, you'll go to jail. Yeah, there are people seriously dealing with Cyril's registration, treating him like a person, treating him like eventually, if he doesn't turn up, a criminal. And the people who are actually operating the system realise they're having the mickey taken out of them. They've got no idea how it's done, because in those days, if you were doing something that was illegal and doing this was illegal, you didn't go about taking a selfie or admit to it. You just did it and moved on. And so, yeah, somewhere along the line, there will be files in some government service with a whole pile of fake registrations. And amongst them will be cats and dogs, old age pensioners, people who have just died. They're amazing. Yeah.
That is a fascinating story. I love that the cats and dogs of Australia were part of that history of civil disobedience.
Yeah, and again, it's just in the anti-war movement, when you did illegal stuff, you just didn't leave paper trails, and you didn't just go out and take selfies or say, I did this, I did that, because people did go to jail, people were punished. The Secret Service, the police were onto you, the state special branch, the police spooks, they were onto you. People were going to jail, and the jail sentence was 2 years at the time for total defiance, and there were massive fines as well. So, you just did it. And I've got no evidence that it took place, except I know that I did satisfactorily conscript one person, and I heard stories about the cats and dogs. So I've got no doubt that it happened.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a file somewhere with little cat prints and dog prints all over it.
Probably, yeah. And you just went and got these. You just went and got these forms from the post office or the Department of Labour and National Service, and just filled them in.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, Rowan, where can people find more stories from you? Where can they read your work?
I've got an author website, and later on this year, a book of my account of the period will be published. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. And I'll put some information about where you can read more of Rowan's fabulous stories in the comment section. So thank you very much, Rowan Cahill. You're a legend.
Well, whether I am or not, I'm still here, but yeah.